My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Yes, it is. Judd's Hockey Show. Now, it would be Judd, it would be Declan, and with less than a week till the opener, it would be our friend Jesse Pierce, BarDownBeauties.NHL.com. But we just got a note before we started to record this, Declan, that Jesse in White Bear Lake is again without power. So, no, Jesse, thanks a lot to whomever runs the power out in White Bear Lake. But we got plenty to get to, including some bad news regarding Wild defenseman and captain Jared Spurgeon. But before we do that, I want to tell you right now that this show is brought to you by our friends at Power Lodge. Look at that right there. Power Lodge is Minnesota's CF Moto Superstore. Since they buy more, you save more. And Power Lodge has new deals to get you ready for your fall escape. Save thousands on CF Moto off-road and side-by-sides. 4x4 starting at an unbelievable $4,599. Get ready for whatever the wilderness throws at you, no matter how tough the job. Power Lodge in their 5 locations has you covered with a 3-year warranty on select units. That's 3 years, a peace of mind. Plus, for a limited time, get a free CF Moto generator when you purchase select units, powering your adventures even further. Locations. Because you're asking me right now, okay, Judd, tell me where the locations are. I'm going to do that. Ramsey, Sauk Rapids, Onamia, St. Cloud, and Brainerd. Power Lodge is your power sports go-to destination, the largest CF Moto dealer in the state. Call or visit today, powerlodge.com, if you have more questions. All right, Dex, let's start with the bad news. I did catch the entire game on Bally Sports North last night between the Blackhawks and the Wild. Second to last, I think, penultimate is what they call it, preseason game. And the bad news is this. Jared Spurgeon has suffered an injury that is an upper body injury, happened on a check in the first period. He did not return for the second period. It looks like he is going to be out. He's not going to be LTIR'd, which means it won't be 10 games, but it's certainly he won't be playing Thursday against the Panthers to start the season. He's going to miss at least a handful, if not more games. Alex Goligoski will now play more. Your thoughts, and I guess the one thing I will say that's good news is it is early in the season. Much prefer this to a guy getting hurt right before the playoffs.
Right. I was able to catch the last 2 periods of the game, so I missed the Spurgeon hit, or Spurgeon injury, I should say. But I know, he'll be out for at least a few weeks, so not a ideal timing, especially with the season that's about to open up against the defending Eastern Conference champions. And granted, I know you're on a home ice, but not a great start. And yes, now you're going to probably see more of the Goose, I'm going to guess, most likely. And maybe this gives an opportunity to Kalen Addison to get more minutes or so. He was quarterbacking the power play, which we'll probably get into as well later on in this episode. But definitely don't want to lose, one of your mainstays on your blue line, and obviously your captain too. So be actually interested to see if Spurgeon obviously is out for the home opener, who does have the C on. The honorary C with your C is out.
Ooh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love the C's,
I know you do.
And I love the A's. I love the letters. I didn't even think of that. That's a great point. Who gets the captaincy? Foligno? Foligno probably, right?
Have they announced
no.
the alternates? Yeah.
They have not. Well, Foligno is, right? Because he's been in, and it was Dumba previously, who's now gone, right? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, I bet Foligno kicks up to captain just because of the fact that he had a letter previously. But that's a good one as far as like who wears the extra. I did see last night. So last night, Kaprizov did not have the A on his jersey as he did last week against for the game at the X against Colorado. Who had the A on last night? Was it? I'm trying to remember now. And it was not Eck either. It was it Hartman? So very good question. Here's my question. Opening night now. What are your defensive pairings? Because Spurgeon's a right-handed shot that played with Middleton, a left-handed shot. Your second pairing, which I think is the first, I will continue to hammer this home. Faber and Brodin are your best defensive pair. They just are.
Faber's great.
And that's a left-hand. I believe Faber is a right-handed shot, correct? And Brodin is a left-handed shot. And then Kalen, who's a right-handed shot, was playing with Merrill. So, is Goose just going to kick up to the top pairing? Are they going to maybe put Faber with Middleton? Although I'm all in favor of Brodin.
Don't disrupt that.
And Faber. I agree with you there.
Yeah, I don't
What's your
think
thought?
you
So, like
cause
for
more
8 games,
confusion with
I agree.
moving one of those two
I'm
out.
with you.
So I think Goligoski probably slides up in Spurgeon's spot and then plays with Middleton. And then what, Merrill and Addison round out the bottom pairing? Is that the most likely outcome?
Yeah,
Probably,
probably.
right?
I like Goose gets when Goose does play, they trust him.
And they don't trust Addison enough to put him with Middleton.
Hell no.
I mean, from a fantasy side or from a NHL video game side, I would do that. That's what I would do if I was running the sticks, if you will. But I think most likely outcome is Goligoski slides into Spurgeon's role. You don't disrupt things with Faber and Brodin, and then obviously the rounding out the pairing would be Merrill and Addison. But they might mix and match this. Depending if it's an
True.
offensive zone. They could put Addison in the
True.
offensive zone. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. So they might get a little creative here with their certain situations and faceoffs. But yeah, this will cause a little bit of a interesting predicament for them for at least the first week or two of the season.
So your right-handed shots on defense now with Spurgeon out, your right-handed shots are going to be your options are Addison, Faber, and I'm with you. Faber and Brodin, I don't think are going to be disrupted. I think you're right about that. And that's it. So I guess the one thing that you're going to have to decide is if you put Middleton with Goose, who plays the right side. I think Goligoski, am I right in saying that? I think he's played at the right side before. But you know what, Dex? Again, in all sports, the double edge of the preseason get you some time, but it can be and I'm not sure about you, but the Blackhawks definitely had some guys last night that were trying to make an impression. Like there was some, and it probably goes both ways. I shouldn't just blame Chicago. There was some unnecessary preseason chippiness, I thought, including if you go back and watch, and I didn't know at the time that he was hurt, but the hit on Spurgeon was one of a few that we saw from behind, including a really dangerous hit by a non-dirty player, Tyler Johnson of the Blackhawks, on Faber, in which Faber's ankle went into the boards really oddly, and it looked really bad for a second. So I'm not sure if it's guys trying to make the team or what in Chicago, but it's preseason, guys. Come on, you're going to have plenty of time for that stuff. But these hits from behind, and that's the one thing in all levels of hockey I absolutely hate, because they're so dangerous. And I understand if you're pushing a guy into the boards, like if you're both close, but if you run a guy from behind, there is almost no good that can come from that.
No, it felt like a regular season. It felt like, not a playoff game, but it felt like a regular season rivalry game, right? I mean, I know Chicago, Minnesota have some history and they're in the division together. But yeah, it didn't feel like a preseason game at all. You had guys rocking each other. You had Dewar drop the gloves. I did love the little moment at the end with Fleury and obviously Bedard, which was funny to see. But yeah, it didn't feel like a get right preseason. Let's get the legs underneath us and get conditioned right and don't do anything dramatic or don't do anything outrageous. It felt like a normal regular season hockey game. And that's why I even texted you during the course of the game and asking, like, is Chicago for real here? Obviously, they got a lot of excitement with Bedard. They get Taylor Hall also in free agency.
Foligno.
I would imagine they're better than they were last year for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm curious if they'll kind of pop up overnight here and go from the bottom to the top, or at least towards the top of the division, basically overnight.
I don't think so. I guess my biggest question, and he actually played pretty well last night for Chicago, is in goal. Like, I just don't know if they have the goaltending, but they definitely have some, and it's smart because with Bedard being a young player, they definitely have brought in some nice components, like, as you said, Hall, and Nick Foligno is not a great player now.
He's a good depth guy.
But he's a great depth guy, and he's a captain type. Like, he and his brother, which is an extension of their father, Mike, who used to play for the Sabres, are both like really, really all good room guys. All right. Topic 2, because it started off in the first period, I was impressed, like with the first 1 or 2, and then I was thoroughly unimpressed. The Wild power play, which is now going to be, so the assistant coach that ran the Wild power play last season is now the head coach of the Iowa Wild in the American Hockey League. Jason King is the name of the new power play coach. And Dex, when they started, first of all, way too many penalties called last night. I know you're trying to get guys used to what you're gonna as officials, but my God, let's swallow the whistle just a little bit more. But the first power play or two, the Wild came out super aggressive, and they didn't score, but I liked it. I'm like, if this is the approach, it's really good. Like, I like the aggressive approach. After that, it went in the tank. That extended two-man where the 5-on-3 where Flower iced the puck was awful. But I guess my inclination is this. I went from encouraged by what I saw to like, this is not good. And both of the units played quite a bit. So it wasn't just the top power play. It was both of them. What were your thoughts on the power play, which I know, especially coming off the playoff disappointment, is really expected to be improved?
Looked like it was in midseason form to me. That's what I tweeted out a little cheeky last night because they had a 5-on-3, and nothing drives me nuts than when you cannot capitalize on a 5-on-3. You know, like obviously when the good power plays are converting a normal man advantage at about 20% clip, right? That's kind of the goal. You want to be near the 20% clip. So basically, obviously, it doesn't take a math major to figure out that most of the time you're actually not going to score in the power play. But when you got a 5-on-3 and an extended one of a minute plus, dude, you gotta bank it home. And it felt ticky-tacky, right? You got Zuccarello down there who's trying to force things into Kaprizov at the top. Like it felt like a classic Wild power play. I'm bummed that Jesse isn't here because that was going to be my line to her of this. It just looks like it's in midseason form. And I know the fans get really into this, and I've voiced to you numerous times that we've been doing this show for the last 3 years that power play specialty is not going to be something that I'm going to devote my like X's and O's and brain power to. So I guess take any of my power play opinions or any of my opinions with a grain of salt. But it looked like it was in midseason form, and it's incredibly frustrating when you have at least the horses for this power play to be a lot better, and unfortunately, it staggers every time.
0 for 6 last night. 0 for 6. And so just to set the scene here, because this was definitely a dress rehearsal for the opener against Florida. The top power play was Eriksson with Kaprizov, Boldy, Addison, and Zuccarello. The second power play, which did get pretty extensive time last night, I don't know that they will get extensive time once the regular season starts, was Rossi, Gaudreau, and Johansson. It started with Spurgeon, who then obviously has been lost now for a few games, and Hartman. And so, yeah, I'm with you after about the first 2 or 3, and I'll never get this. I understand that you're looking for a good shot, Declan, but there's a difference between trying to find the best shot, because it is now a day and age in hockey where pucks get blocked, shots get blocked a lot. But the difference to me is, okay, that's fine. Look for a good shot. But these guys, and I think we bitched about this last year, they think they're Gretzky,
Yeah.
They think they're going to set up. I mean, Kaprizov at times, and he's a marvelous talent. Don't get me wrong. I love Kaprizov. I love to watch him. But how many times were you watching the power play last night and said, just shoot the puck. You don't need to set something up. I feel like we're in mid-season form with Zuki and Kirill. I'll pass to you. You pass to me. I'll pass to you. Get the damn puck on the goal.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at some of the best power play specialists, at least power play point leaders, not even specialists, but point leaders last year, and obviously that Edmonton one's absurd, right? Like if McDavid and Draisaitl and RNH are on the power play, like just basically tap out, like they're going to score. But when you look at the power play leaders outside of them, like it's Kucherov, it's Jason Robertson, it's John Tavares, it's Zibanejad, it's Pasta, it's Mikko Rantanen of Colorado, and then Kirill had obviously a decent year last year, but he's below guys like Tage Thompson and Quinn Hughes and Mitch Marner, who again these are all really good players. I'm not trying to denigrate them, but you need your best players to be scoring on the power play, and you also need an infrastructure around them that supports them. And it's not as simple as just Zuccarello down low, give it to Kaprizov. Like there is a little bit of structure here that has to take place. And when you look at the power play over the last few years, it's maddening to watch because they should be a lot better on paper, and for whatever reason, they can't seem to crack the code.
Well, and you got a new, I don't know, it's a completely new schematic here, but it's definitely a change in philosophy of some sort. All right, next talking point, and LaPanta and Wes Walls talked about this a lot during the telecast, but I think it's worth us discussing as well, is back on defense, Brock Faber. Now, Brock Faber did make a pass last night that led to a breakaway goal, basically, for the Blackhawks. So he did make one mistake, and yes, he's going to make mistakes. He is a young player, and nobody's perfect. But overall, how impressed were you? Because I think that the step up from Matt Dumba and the Dumba he had become, because, before the Kachuk fight, Dex, there was always like the threat of the potential, right? And there were, before the Kachuk fight that season, he was off to just a marvelous start. But when you watch what Faber brings, and here's the other thing I saw last night that I absolutely loved. He's super, super smart, and he has clearly been told, hey, I want you to, by the coaching staff, because Brodeen's so good defensively, we want you to take some chances. Like, he pinched in on occasion, and I don't know that that's his ballywick ordinarily, but Brodeen used to basically play Dumba's position at times. How encouraged were you? Because I think the upgrade in that pairing, and it's why I think that they are the true number one pairing on defense, the upgrade from Dumba has to play with Brodeen to Brock is going to play with Brodeen is going to be one of the biggest upticks that this franchise sees from 2022-23 to 2023-24.
It kind of reminds you of when Brodeen entered the league, right? Because if I remember right, like Brodeen barely played in the AHL. I could be wrong on this, but I remember him stepping in right away, right in that 11-12 season, and basically looked like he had been an NHL vet, right? That's what even Ryan Suter said similar things after he got here of, this is ridiculous. Like, this kid's so young and so inexperienced to a degree of games played, and yet he looks like he's a veteran. Brock Faber, similar thing. And look, he was a really good college hockey player, but that jump from college to the NHL is a tough one. And that's someone who loves college hockey, and I've seen a ton of college hockey, but you don't really get the translation of best college hockey players make good NHL players. In fact, it rarely happens. And Brock Faber really looks like a guy who hasn't missed a beat and has actually been playing in the NHL for years. And you bring up the point that, like, Brodeen is obviously the great stay-at-home defenseman, and he can make a lot of savvy plays that don't show up for goals and points, and that's really not his game. But can Faber replicate more of the offensive production that Matt kind of dropped off on over the last few years? And I think that's like the theory that's around Brock Faber of, if he's obviously a good defenseman, he can play NHL minutes, that's clear. But is there an offensive uptick to his game that kind of doesn't counteract Brodeen, but gives that pairing a different type of level where Brodeen isn't covering for Dumba's defensive miscues? Because obviously Faber is a better defensive, I think, defenseman than Dumba. But is there this offensive game to Faber that we haven't seen from Dumba basically in the last few years?
And I think that no matter what you get from Brock, it's going to be superior, because I think he's just a flat out better player than Matt Dumba is right now. So, like, I'm super excited. I watch him play, and Dex, it's rare to see a guy who makes the transition, first of all, into the playoffs and just plays. I mean, that's Cale Makar stuff. And I'm not comparing Faber to Makar, but I am saying that, like, making that transition and just bang. I mean, playoff hockey, as we both know, is different than, for sure, than regular season. But I just think that transition and that move and what you see from Brock, which is this sort of steady, calm heart rate. I mean, he and Brodeen, my guess is combined, their heart rates are never going to race. Like, they look like two guys who are just always calm, cool, and collected. And so I think that it's going to be a huge step up. And Brodeen was already damn good. And I think it's also going to make the Fiala trade in the long run a really good trade. Like, in retrospect now, and you probably like Fiala more than anybody in town, but in retrospect now, if you had to trade him, which they basically did, and that's your return, that's a great trade. So I am incredibly encouraged there. Marco Rossi.
Yeah.
I have been, now he was playing third line, and this appears to be where he's going to start, opening night. Third line, Foligno on the left, Gaudreau on the right. I saw him against the Avs last week, in which I think he played a very good game. Last night, he made the game tying goal because the stick lift of the defenseman behind the goal where they both were going back for the puck, and then the pass to Patty Maroon, who shoveled it past the Blackhawks goaltender. But Marco Rossi, and he had a good preseason a year ago, so I'll be cautious here. But he's bigger. You could tell he's stronger. That stick lift that he did to create the tying goal last night does not happen a year ago.
I agree.
I really like what I've seen, and I think he has put himself in position now to get an extended look, a long look, and won't have the rug pulled out from under him if he doesn't have a good first week or two.
Yeah, he looks a lot better. He just looks stronger, and obviously I think the confidence is there. It felt like he was playing scared and skating on eggshells to a degree last season, especially towards the end before he got demoted to the AHL, where he still dominated. Yeah, I think there's a place for him here, and how he takes this opportunity and how the team deploys him after he's obviously a little bit more comfortable and they're not just waiting for him to make a mistake. I think that's the more curiosity part on my end. He's clearly going to make the team. Like, that's clear at this point. He's going to make the team. And where you're saying he's probably going to be that third line center. Absolutely. It's then if he gets comfortable in that role and he's playing well, does he get, and mostly what happens here is with injuries, but does he get rewarded with a top line? Because Judd, I watched enough of it in the preseason hockey game yesterday. Like, Ryan Hartman long term as a number one center is not going to work. I can't take it seriously. I know this is a broken record on Judd's hockey show for the last year.
I don't disagree.
But I cannot take a team seriously if that's the case. I just can't.
First of all, Dean's not changing it. Like, it's just very clear he's not, and it's very clear that it would take Hartman. Hartman would again have to have a terrible start. Here's my question. So, line combination wise, and it's a shame Pierce is not here because she loves this stuff. But line combination wise, let me float an idea at you, knowing that Dean is not going to demote Hartman unless he's hurt or is absolutely so atrocious that Bill Guerin probably mandates it, which I don't think is going to happen. What would you think of this? If Rossi gets off to a good start, what would you think about flipping? And let's get past lines, like as far as first, second, third, okay? So let's just think of this generically to go along with my train of thought here. What would you think about flipping Rossi with Ek? So it's Rossi with Johansson and Boldy, which I think is more of an offensive, and Ek can play. And this is not a slight at Ek. My thing is, in fact, I would give him a chance with the top line right now, but Ek can play anywhere. Like, he is just a reliable, really solid player. And then Ek goes to sort of a grief line again with Foligno and Gaudreau.
I like that.
I just think it gives Rossi a chance to shine offensively.
Yeah, and I guess we're moving the 1, 2, 3 lines. I think it's more likely that happens, right? Than they just take Hartman off of it.
I think because I agree with everything that you said, and I also can tell you unequivocally, I don't think Dean, unless he is forced to, is going to take 38 off the line with 36 and 97.
Yeah, and that's where I said I think it's more of injuries that happen in the course of any sport that kind of force the hand a little bit. It'll just be really interesting if Rossi plays well and they realize we got to put this guy with even better players and he deserves it, not just to disrupt the chemistry that could be working on Rossi's line, but he deserves to be playing with better playmakers too. So, yeah, I think probably stepping up and being in with guys like Boldy, who obviously has already emerged, and Johansson, who has had obviously some pretty successful NHL seasons too, that might be the more linear path of him getting a legitimate promotion.
Before Ek broke his ankle on the slap shot, I think it was in Pittsburgh late in the regular season last year, that I think he was playing with Johansson and Boldy, and that line took off. But it's my opinion that Rossi, because I'm trying to think of how can you put Marco in a spot to shine offensively. He should not be dumb defensively. That won't be tolerated. But Gaudreau and Foligno, Are they gonna like the goal last night that tied the score was Marco Rossi makes a great play and Patty Maroon scores. Well, is Patty Maroon, who's going to be a fourth line guy, going to do that a ton? So I'm just trying to think of ways, and I think Johansson and Boldy's offensive upside and him playing with Marco Rossi playing with those two could be intriguing. I fully expect Dean won't do a damn thing here. I mean, it's not in Dean's DNA to change things. But anyway, I'm with you on Hartman completely, and I can tell you unequivocally I'll be shocked if it changes.
I know.
Unless he gets hurt.
Maybe go to Summit Orthopedics if you're Marco Rossi or Dean Evison if you need some changes there, right? Maybe need a little bit of changes.
Or if Hartman gets hurt.
Yeah,
he can go to Summit Ortho.
Especially if it's those ankles, those feet, back, neck, spine, elbows, hands, wrists, doesn't matter at Summit Orthopedics. Over 25 locations in the Twin Cities and greater Minnesota area. They have over 150 expert physicians and physical therapists specially trained in their fields. Learn more, find a location near you at summitortho.com. That's summitortho.com.
So I would expect that we'll be back next week to before the Thursday game probably to do an episode with Jesse in tow, and then perhaps Thursday night post game live. It's gonna be a busy week, but so the Twins are gonna play. Twins are gonna play
sure.
Tuesday and Wednesday. But then they would go back to Houston, so that would probably be Friday. So I think we might have I think there might be a window, as the meteorologists like to say, to get a wild post-game show in after they play the Panthers. It's going to be, I think it's going to be Gus Bus against your guy, Bob.
Bob, that's right, yeah.
Who you have criticized that contract, and he led him to the Stanley Cup. You Griffin Jacks Bob hater.
Look, I'm the goalie whisperer on this show, okay? I don't have to apologize for any goalie takes yet, so we'll see how that goes. Hit the subscribe button. Daily Minnesota Sports Entertainment, as Judd said, will be back obviously next week as well. Wild season finally here, crept up on us, right? We got through these off-season topics. We got through all these great questions, preseason topics. We'll have Jesse Pierce in the fold. We'll have AJ Fredrickson also in the fold a ton.
Fix the power.
Even more. Fix
that
now
power, Jesse Pierce. Call Finch Home Solutions.
Yeah, go Bears, Jesse. Pass, shoot, score.